guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new Entitled People content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, The Gym Next Door. I lost some great neighbors about 8 months ago. They were in the military and received orders to another part of the country. I knew the bliss wouldn't last forever. I helped them pack up their stuff, took trips to the dump for them, and even said, anything that comes up at the last minute you need ditch, toss in my trailer on the side yard. New neighbors moved in a few days later. Turns out he runs his own business out of his home. All home-based businesses requires a permit which must be signed. Outlines the requirements, rules of a home-based business. 2 of these rules are no customers before 7 a.m. on the weekdays and no customers before 8 a.m. on the weekends, no business to be conducted after 7 p.m. and b. no more than 3 customers at your home at a time. Sadly, our neighbor runs a gym, personal training out of his garage. We found out that he has classes every hour of every day between 5 to 9 a.m. and then from 4 to 7 p.m. He will routinely have 4 or more people at his class. After the first complaint to the city provided no relief, I purchased and installed some video cameras. We are routinely woken up by his customer traffic, sometimes as early as 4:45 a.m. His customers love to talk, and talk loud without much thought given to anyone in the neighborhood. There was one that would announce her arrival by setting her car alarm several times while she walked into his garage. One Saturday he decided it would be a good idea to open his garage up, pull out his equipment, and have class on his driveway. About a dozen people showed up by 7 a.m. His customers routinely use my side yard and driveway to access his garage. His customers, generally 4 to 5, will line up outside his gate at 10 minutes to the top of the hours waiting for the prior class to finish. Routinely they will drop weights in the garage, on padded floor, which will rattle his side door, and when his side is open my side door and sometimes the windows adjacent to his home with rattle. And if I didn't know it was a gym you'd think it was a whorehouse with all the grunting going on. Clearly he wasn't obeying the rules set forth in the home-based business policy set by the city. Finally, after several months of complaints, video evidence, sworn statements by myself and likely other neighbors, his business, and sole means of support for his wife and 3 young daughters, will be cut off this next week. I hope for his sake he decides to move or open up a commercial space. Hopefully he decided to move. I can suggest a few realtors that could help him and he'd be welcome to use my trailer to move his stuff. Update. Some, maybe one, asked for an update. I was awoken again at 5 a.m. with the sound of a car door slamming and car lock being engaged with a shrill beep coming from the front of my home. Yep, gym class started. Time to get up, start recording the show outside. Except I didn't record the show. I instead looked up the name and email of the city manager that I help pay with my sales and property taxes. I also found the city council member emails. Some of these people I coached their children in Little League, helped with their elections, and even donated money too. I emailed them all, told them I felt ghosted by the city official I was working with to get this resolved. And that I got the same response. Friday we'll mail out a letter and send you a copy, for nearly 2 months. Except that Friday never seemed to occur. I also expressed that I was tired of dealing with this, getting woken up, having his customers use my yard as a walkway. Something needed to be done, an answer needed to be given. I was blessed with a letter, dated today, that was emailed to my neighbor that finished with the following. Accordingly, pursuant to RMC section 17.68.080, you are ordered to cease your home business. A continuation of the home occupation shall constitute a violation of RMC Title 17. This part is now over. I guess I will see if he decides to adhere to the order. Chances aren't good. But I remain hopeful. I also remain vigilant. He's got a temper. I've overheard how he's talked to his wife in the past. Update 2. This will hopefully be my last update. After the city gave him notice to stop running his gym business, he surprised no one by continuing to operate, first class starting at 5 o'clock. After talking to the code enforcement investigator, I decided to share a schedule of my observations. The investigator also suggested I text him when I notice a class taking place so he can drive by and issue a citation, $500 US fine. This went on for a few weeks. During this time, code enforcement issued 2 citations. The second citation was delivered last week. The municipal code is written in such a way that after the third citation the matter is referred to the city's legal department, who can then order the police to arrest the person while they are conducting business at their home. And while it's a misdemeanor, there are additional fines, including paying for the time and resources spent arresting him. Also, the city can put a lien on the property to recover the fines and fees. The classes stopped this week. The cameras that I have facing the street are now recording this neighbor leaving at 4:45 and returning shortly after 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. He also leaves in the afternoon for a few hours and returns shortly after 7 p.m. All the times coincide with times where he had classes in his garage. Last night I noticed he'd posted several gym-related items on several of the Facebook neighborhood garage sale groups. I think it's over. After 8 months of being awoken every single weekday morning by his customers at 4:50 to 5 o'clock and again at 5:50 to 6 o'clock, it's over. No more people walking across my yard, no more loud talkers, no more cars parked all over the place, and no more car locks beeping in the early hours. So dear readers, a message for you: don't give up. While it might take a while, persistence is key. If your neighbors are doing something illegal, keep reporting it. Keep documenting. Keep pushing the police, code enforcement, the city manager, and your elected officials to enforce the law. Hopefully this neighbor can put this behind him. I will. I have no malice towards him. He just needed to obey the rules he'd agreed to when he opened his business. And since he couldn't, he had to be compelled to stop. Next one is titled, Making Up Property Lines. There's a lot of detail, so I'll try to keep this as briefly as I can. My wife and I moved into our current house in the summer of 2020. We loved this house right at first sight. We put in an offer, and we couldn't be happier that we actually got the house. It's not perfect by any means, but it's our first house together. We're in our late 20s. However, when we looked at the house on Google Maps, on our Maps app, etc., there always seemed to be a "for sale" sign in front of the house, and thought it was odd, because it's such a nice house. Anyway, the house is semi-detached, and is attached only by the garage. I wasn't thrilled about this, but whatever, I could overlook that. The house also had about 3 to 4 security cameras around the front. After owning the house for a couple of weeks, we speak with a few of our new neighbors, and every time, they ask us about our next door neighbor, the neighbor from hell, and ask, how has she been so far? For a little background, our neighbor is a divorced woman, in, I believe, her 70s, rarely leaves her property, and looks very unkempt. She's also the next door neighbor who's attached at our garage. Neighbor has been a bit weird, but nice. We mind our own business and kept things very cordial, learning via the rest of the neighborhood that she's a bit off. As we get to know the neighbor, we find out that the neighbor and the previous owners of our new house were at war with each other. We never spoke with the previous owners at that point in time, but the neighbor had nothing but bad things to say about them. Oh well, not our problem. So, getting to the meat of this story, having a garage attached to her house, garage, our driveways are also connected. While we were chatting with her outside one day, we told her how we were looking into tearing up our driveway in order to get a new stamped concrete driveway. The driveway was a brick one, identical to hers. We wanted it changed because weeds would constantly come through the cracks between the bricks and would look awful. Neighbor never raised any objections or had any problems with it. A few weeks later, the driveway contractors come by and start ripping up our driveway bricks. One of the contractors knocks on our door and tells me that neighbor's car is partially parked on our driveway. Our driveways have an outline, pattern to them indicating who owns what part of the driveway. The contractor told me that he went over to neighbor's house and knocked on her door to ask her to move her car. However, she did not answer the door, locked the door, and shut her blinds to cover her little window next to the door. The contractor asked me to knock on neighbor's door to see if she can move her car off of our property. I knock, and stand at her door for about 10 minutes. I also put myself in front of a couple security cameras she has, forgot to mention her cameras earlier, to show her it was me. When she finally comes out, she is yelling at me about the contractors, thinking they were at her house to potentially mug her, break in. I apologized and explained what was going on. She also explained to me that her car wasn't on our property, and that when she got her roof done 10 to 15 years ago, they told her that they laid the new roof up to the property line, which was way past the little driveway brick designs we have. Regardless, she moved her car and allowed us to use that part of her driveway. I gave her my cell number in case there were any more problems and told her that if she happens to get any parking tickets for being parked on the street for too long, we will happily pay them for her. Being confused about the property line, I pulled out the land survey that we received with the house, and measured our side of the house up to the last inch. According to our land survey, that wasn't her property as she claimed. We also noticed that the property line she claimed was on an angle, due to her crooked roofing, and also included about a foot or so of our garage, which, at that point, I knew she was either lying, or didn't know where her property line truly was. After clarifying that with our contractors, she somehow eavesdropped on our conversation. She texted me that evening, about 10 p.m., stating, we can no longer use her property to enhance our driveway, and that the property line actually was on an angle. I ignored the texts. During the next few days, the contractors worked on our new driveway. She would then come out to take pictures of the contractors and her property line, and generally harass the contractors, activate her car alarm, let her dogs bark, etc. When the contractors come to get me, I attempt to come out and show her our land survey, but by the time I get outside, she runs back into her house. This goes on for a few days. After a few more days of harassing our contractors, I finally text the previous owner of the house. He previously accidentally sent a package to our current house, and I told him I'd text him when it arrives, hence having his cell number, asking what kind of problems he had with neighbor. He calls me, which ends up being about a 15 to 20 conversation about how neighbor would dispute the property line, to which the previous owner of our house had a land survey done, concluding that the property line is not where neighbor claims it is. It's where we thought it was the whole time. Previous owner also had a camera installed close to the property line, which he sent me video of her staying on her actual side of the property line when having a verbal argument. On another occasion, he sent me a video of neighbor hitting him with a shovel, which neighbor from hell pled guilty for. Neighbor currently has a restraining order against her with our house due to this. Prior to the restraining order, she also called the police 40+ times on the previous owner, not sure why though. I also went back on Google Maps, and noticed that neighbor lined up a wall of bricks on the actual property line, the one from the land survey, not her made-up one. Probably to mark her side with the previous owner of our house. She currently has those bricks in her garage. This might be why she was avoiding us, and never provided a land survey of her own. Now, the driveway is done, but she still puts her garbage can on our driveway. After seeing photo and video evidence of her acknowledging the actual property line, my wife and I are convinced that she does this with everyone who owns our house. We ignore her garbage can, because at this point we figure that she just does this for her own entertainment. We're also thinking that there might be some mental issues going on. Made Up Property Lines, Part 2. Hi everyone, it's been a while since my first post. Just been too busy lately to be writing a follow-up post. There is no clear story, just want to ramble, vent, give some updates. To answer, clarify a few questions, comments from my last post. The previous owner of our house actually sold the house in late winter of 2020. The owner who sold us the house in the summer of 2020 only had it for about 4 to 5 months in order to flip the house. I'm unaware of any property dispute laws that may be in place, but as the owner who only had the house for 4 to 5 months didn't have it that long, and never actually lived in the house, that could be a loophole, as the previous owner in my original post is technically the second previous owner. Anyway, this is a detail that I did not mention in my first post due to it not really being too relevant to the driveway fiasco. We had new neighbors move into the other house next door to us this past summer. They are a couple with similar ages to our own. To paint a picture, our house is on a corner lot. Based on this layout, neighbor's fence in her backyard actually meets with the property line of our new next door neighbor's side of their property, if that makes sense. A day before the new neighbors moved in and while the house was vacant, neighbor from hell went onto their property, unlatched the new neighbor's chain link fence door to the side of their property, and rode on the opposite side of her fence, facing the new neighbor's house. This fence is the property of neighbor from hell's address in black Sharpie. When we met the new next door neighbors the following day, they told us all about what she did. When they saw what she wrote, they looked up toward her house, and they saw her recording them through her upstairs back window. They never even met each other before. Now that we know she is clearly not in her right mind, between the assault charge and restraining order with the previous neighbor, and trespassing, writing stuff on the fence. I'm not sure if they filed a police report or not. We have also learned through a neighbor that has been in this neighborhood for 20 years that we are the 9th owners of this house in the span of 20 years. I wonder why. My wife and I have tried to talk to neighbor from hell to tell her to stay off of our property. Every time, she runs back into her house. Unless there is a rare instance, she now only comes out of her house between 3:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. We're nervous to go up to her house to confront her, as the previous owner told us that she is very good at spinning a story back onto whoever lives in our house to make it seem like we're the problem neighbors. We don't know what she's capable of doing if we were to knock on her door. Maybe claim that we were threatening her? We wonder if she's even trying to bait us into doing something that she can spin into her own narrative. We have now installed an outdoor camera to the frame of our garage, which overlooks the driveway. During this time period, 3:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m., neighbor from hell has been squirting our garage driveway camera with her hose, maybe to get it to break? As it is now autumn, she also takes leaves that have fallen onto her property from her tree and throws them onto our driveway. We only have evergreen trees on our property. Therefore, piles of leaves would not magically show up on our driveway overnight. Similarly, she has been taking small rocks and gravel from the gap between our driveways and has been throwing those onto our driveway as well. Again, this is all between 3:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Neighbor from hell also now goes directly under our garage camera, which is way past where she claims the property line is, and sweeps her leaves even farther onto our driveway. We have footage of everything. We have tried to submit the footage to the police via their website, but we have received no feedback. My wife and I are planning on going to the police station in the next day or two to show them the videos in person. All in all, this clearly isn't neighbor from hell's first rodeo, and this is just becoming harassment at this point. Hopefully we can get some guidance from the police, because this is just getting ridiculous. We've also been thinking about calling an anonymous mental health hotline for her. We've also been looking at other houses. While we've only been living in this house for a year, we really aren't emotionally attached to the house. We realize that at the end of the day, neighbor from hell is probably miserable with her life, and harassing her neighbors is like a hobby for her. While she may win in the short term, we will hopefully move into a new house and win in the long run just by not living next to her. If we never got a new driveway, we're convinced that something else would have set her off. It was only a matter of time. Thanks for listening.